show tonight, three men who, if they've got anything in common, it is that they share an irreverent attitude to the world we live in. One is a man whose irreverence earned him a 6-month jail sentence. He was one of the founder members of the magazine Oz, which in the early 70s divided the peoples of Britain and Australia into two camps, those who welcomed it as a necessary lampoon of all we hold dear and precious, and those who saw it as a publication both subversive and obscene. What became known as the Oz trial could be seen as a victory for the establishment, and yet today, even the moral diehards must look back on what happened and wonder what all the fuss was about. The man at the centre of that row is now the executive director of one of Australia's oldest and most respectable book publishers, which proves something. He is Richard Walsh. Another of my guests is someone whose unique way of looking at the way we are, brought a new dimension to first the craft of the radio disc jockey and then humour on television. His fans swear by him, his enemies curse him. He was once sacked by the BBC for making fun of a politician on radio. His TV performances, shown both here and in Britain, have won acclaim as some of the most original and inventive programmes ever seen on the box, while prompting Disgusted of Canberra and the like to complain at his shocking antics. He is Mr. Kenny Everett. As to my third guest, well, he is, in my view, simply one of the funniest men on the planet. He is a comedian who rejected the conventional image of the funny man as the patter merchant in bow tie and tuxedo telling other people's jokes. Instead, his humour is based on his own cockeyed observations of the world and its madness. In Britain, he's a massive star. In Australia, he completed a tour earlier this year which established him a new and fanatic following. He is Billy Connolly. All that and one or two surprise music numbers. Join me after the break to meet Billy Connolly. Welcome back. My first guest tonight started life as a welder in the shipyards of Glasgow, went on the road as a folk singer with a friend called Jerry Rafferty, and became the leader of a new style of humour which captivated British audiences. In July, he finished a tour of Australia which won him a new tribe of ardent fans. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Connolly. I suppose somebody coming from the background of, son of a welder or son of a dockyard worker, and coming from the area you did, that one would imagine from that and Glasgow as well, that the way out for you would have been sport. I mean, that's the traditional way out, isn't it? Yeah, soccer and stuff like that.
Soccer and rock and roll.
Yeah.
But I was lousy at both. I've never been able to handle sport at all.
Really? Have you tried them all?
I've tried every single one of them. I was in a team, St Benedict's, who were beaten 17-1. A soccer team. That takes a bit of doing. Until the manager of the team actually offered money to the first guy to score a goal. And so they got the smallest guy in the other team, who wasn't a goalkeeper, to stand in the goal, and we were to take penalties, and nobody scored. It was rotten. Well, I've even tried jogging.
Have you?
Oh, I hate it.
Why?
I just hate it, you know. I get bored stiff. And I hate the clothes. What am I doing here?
You came from a very conventional, working class background, though, didn't you? I mean, quite a religious background as well.
Yeah.
And you've always had this strong streak of irreverence in you. Did it ever lead to conflict at home?
It did. I was thrown out of the house. You see, I had been a welder, just an ordinary wee welder, and I learned the banjo. And I was in the army at the time, the territorials, you know, the weekend army. Mm-hmm. And I started the banjo and went to banjo lessons and met all these hairy people, anarchists and Trotskyists and all kinds of ists. And I liked them, I thought they were great. And so I started buying their literature and learning about the real world, you know, what was really going on out here. Because up till then it was all Catholicism and shipyards, a deadly mixture, running about with guns and things. So I started buying their literature and my father didn't like it. And it all came to a crunch on Ash Wednesday when I came in from work and I had no ashes on my forehead. And he said, "You've no in." And I said, "Well, my boss is a Protestant, wouldn't give me a pass out." And I thought, what am I lying for? And I said, "No, I'm not in." But I was 22. I should have left about 4 years before that.
Where did you go to live?
Oh, I lived in a wild assortment of places, jeez. In these rooming houses, you know, with a big square hallway with all the doors, it was like a farce. People running, everybody was crazy. And his woman, her husband, had died. He was a total loony. And he had died in some institution. And through sympathy, she used to take crazy people in when they were released. And she just thought I was one of them when I turned up at the door. And a guy ate a goldfish in there one night. He came wandering in, blitzed out, pissed, you know. He thought it was a peach out of a tin. It was mayhem and madness. Oh, you were horrifying stories.
Well, what about the army? Because, again, I mean, that seems very curious to somebody with your temperament and nature and views that you should go and join the army voluntarily.
Yeah, well, I was 18, and you're strange and weird when you're 18, aren't you? You don't know what's going on. You don't know what to press to make it work. So I thought, yeah, I'd like to jump out of a plane. So I joined the parachute regiment. And I jumped out of the first plane I ever walked into. As a matter of fact, I had done 6 parachute jumps, and I hadn't landed in a plane. I was like, I wonder what landing's like. And then one day, the plane broke down up there. Something went terribly wrong, and it listed, and everybody was frightened except me, because I thought, hey, we're going to land. But then I got terribly disillusioned. We were in Cyprus, and I thought I was Alan Ladd with the red beret and the rifle and everything. And we were doing this exercise. We were chasing a regiment called the Green Howards through the Carigna Mountains, and they were also territorial weekend soldiers. And we were a fortnight in the mountains trying to capture these guys who were 10 times better than us at hiding. And we caught one guy. There was about 7,000 of us. I wanted to kill him. I was knackered. But it was a poor wee guy, a wee Green Howard, who couldn't run as fast as his mates. And he worked in the same shipyard as me. I could have got him in the canteen and saved the plane fare.
What sort of soldier were you, though? I mean,
I was dreadful. I remember in that exam, you should have seen this, you wouldn't believe it. And then we're going through an orange grove. And the guys were all walking behind me, because I was a Bren gunner at this point. And the Bren was knocking the oranges off the trees, and they were picking them up at the back. And I came to a wee hill. It's just a very straight little hill. And I went up, and then it was in the middle of the night. See, there was nothing on the other side of the hill. What's happening here? And I looked over, and I was on top of somebody's house. It was one of those houses that just slopes down to the ground. It was stupid.
When you went onto the stage, I mean, you started off as a folk singer.
Yeah.
And then the talk in between the announcements rather got longer, and that's how the comedy thing started. Mm-hmm. But you brought in an entire new style of humour, presentation of comedy to the stage. Was that by chance, or was that deliberate?
Well, both. I had, in the folk scene, I was a bit of a rebel. There was a lot of rebels in there, you know, all singing different kinds of songs. It was a very good period in British music, the folk revival thing. But I always had this burning ambition to blow away that kilted image of Scotland. I hate it so much.
Why?
I mean, if you're Australian and all your comedians come out dressed as kangaroos, you wouldn't like it. It's this shortbread tin image they have, you see, since Harry Lauder. Now, Harry Lauder was good and very original in what he did, but this procession of kilts and velvet jackets and stuff was no use. It was holding everybody back. So I just rebelled against it. And what I was doing felt so right. And I thought, you know, on stage, I talk about my body and farting and all that kind of thing. And, well, because it's there. You know, I'm like a mountaineer because it's there. And I thought, why are the jokes I hear in the shipyard so much better than the ones I hear on television? So I just decided to take the street humour onto the stage. It wasn't a big conscious decision. It gradually came about. And Jerry Rafferty, his songwriting was getting so much better than mine. Well, he started better than me and got better. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'm not a singer-songwriter. My songs are rotten. I'm going to be a comedian. Yes.
Was it an instantaneous success for you? I mean, did you get immediate response to what you were trying to do?
Yeah, when I started doing it right, when I started owning up that I was a comedian, I read it in the paper one day. And it blew me out. It said, comedian Billy Connolly. I thought I was a folk singer. It was the same when I worked in the shipyards. I wanted to be an engineer. And they said, yes, Mr. Connolly, just go with Mr. Hughes. And I became a welder. I've joined the wrong queue here.
Do you think that a humorist has a task beyond that of making people laugh, though? Do you think there is a point to humour?
It can have. Lenny Bruce had it. But I don't have it. I'm a bit thick, you know, in that department. I thought I knew about politics. But I don't, you know, and I hate index finger waving comedians. I don't want to be taught anything. I want to go into a theatre and sit down and let the real world go away and just laugh. I don't want to be taught anything. Yes. I don't even really think politically anymore. When I look at politicians, I get scared. And so I don't do... I mean, the Indians have got a satellite. Right, it's chapatis they need, not satellites. So, really, I mean, starving people going, oh, there's a satellite, very good. They've forgotten what a chapati looks like. And it fell out the sky.
What are the areas that you won't make fun of as a comedian?
There's none. There are some areas I haven't made fun of.
Like what?
I don't know. Well, I tried to do a thing on perverted sex, and it was quite successful. But then there are areas where I enter, and I think I'm being unfair here and picking on minorities, you know, and I don't like that. I hate racism, and I hate it in humour. I don't like Irish jokes, you know, and I don't like Scottish jokes and Aussie, Pommy. I don't like all that. I think we'd be much better off without it. But there are areas. The royal family I've been having a go at recently, in a kind of light-hearted way, really. No, it's quite bad sometimes.
Well, there's a kind of political point and purpose behind that, isn't there?
No, I just do it because I think it's funny.
I see. But what's your attitude to all the royal family?
I think they're nice.
I'll give you a commercial break here to rethink that question. We'll be back in a moment with Billy Connolly. See you in a moment. Welcome back. My guest is Billy Connolly. Billy, you had a marvellous reception on your tour of Australia recently. What, in fact, has been the worst experience you've had on stage? Because you've done an awful lot of touring.
Oh, well, I've had two outstandingly bad receptions in my life, and one was in Brisbane. And they don't like me too much in Brisbane. Well, they might like me too much, but a guy charged up to the stage and started screaming and shouting, and as a matter of fact, I've lied and exaggerated about it so much that I forget what really happened. All I remember was he was a Scottish-Australian prison officer. Duh! And he didn't like me. And I was booed on, which is a weird experience. And the theatre had a centre aisle, which is strange in a theatre because the audience are there and you're looking up the middle. And the door to the theatre was open. And I could see people in the street as we're standing there. And a guy came along with a dog, looked in, went, boo, and walked on.
But why was that? I mean, why that immediate reaction when you walked on? Were they expecting the traditional Scottish comedian?
Well, that's the story that was in the paper. They must have asked somebody. But I didn't stick around to ask anybody. I was out of there. It was terrible. But they said they expected Andy Stewart. Well, they should have booked Andy Stewart. Yeah, the man with the singing knees. I couldn't even tune a kill. I don't know what you do with him.
You mentioned there were two occasions. That was one.
Oh, the other one was in Banff in Scotland. It was crazy. I was in a playing in a hotel, and it's a fishing village, and the fishing village next door is called Macduff, and they hate each other. And the two fishing fleets arrived on the same night and all got drunk and came to see me. And it was bedlam. So a guy came up to the stage and he says, I can't hear you. Where I'm sitting, I can't hear a thing. And he was steaming and there was blood all over his face. I don't know what he'd been doing. They'd been biting each other at the back. And I said, OK, well, sit somewhere else. Or, do you want your money back? And he said, no. And I said, well, do you want to leave and have your money back? And he said, no. I said, well, what do you want? He said, I want you to stop the show. And I said, you've done it. Good night. And walked away. But the guy in the hotel panicked, and I got all the blame for it. They said I was short.
What kind of reaction do you get in Scotland? I mean, you said there that you reject this kind of traditional image of the Scots.
Yeah.
But you present kind of a different image, don't you? You
the drunken slob.
The drunken slob. Yeah, that's right. I mean, does that get a bad reaction in Scotland?
Well, what they don't realise in Scotland is I'm talking about me.
Ah.
Yeah. I'm the punchline. I'm the subject matter of most of my stories. I'm not talking about them. Sometimes I'm talking about them. But it's me I'm talking about. The press are very sensitive in Scotland about me. And they give me a bad time. But who cares? Most of them couldn't write home for money anyway. But it's true. Most of them hold a pencil like that. Tongue out for capital letters. The pencil all chewed and sharpened at both ends. Yeah, I don't like them and they don't like me, and that's itchy peachy. But the public still like me. Yeah.
What about when you tour abroad? I mean, you've played in some extraordinarily exotic places, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Which have been the most remarkable ones?
The strangest one was in Cairo, for the Cairo Scottish Highland Dance Society. It's great. I loved every second of it. And they couldn't afford me, you know. And I said, well, I can't do it cheaper because other people feel cheated if I do it. He said, well, how about you just come out and stay for a week and we'll get you a tour of the place and you'll have a great time. And I did it, and it was the best week I've had in my life, I think. Oh. Cairo's a great place. Yeah. There's holes in the ground everywhere, big, huge holes. Then they dig them up to do something and then everybody forgets what it's for. So they all walk away and forget about it. And so nobody in Cairo drives over puddles in the street because it might be 15 feet deep. I got the idea that's what pyramids were for filling these holes. You just turn
What about the Middle East? Because you toured there, didn't you, generally?
Yeah, it was great. I've done that twice. Except it's disconcerting in the Middle East. You play outdoors most of the time. And with your spotlights, all these weird things that live in the desert come up and say hello. You know, hairy things that have their life's ambitions to fly up your right nostril, you know? In the middle of it really is crazy. And they love it, because they know how harmful or harmless the thing is, but you don't. It's just going to bomb you like a kamikaze pilot. So they gave me, in Abu Dhabi, they gave me a tennis racket. Every time I went, thwack!
What about America? Because you've done several tours there, haven't you, as well?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done everything from touring with Elton
Yes.
John, a rock concert. Crowds of, what, 80,000 or so?
Yeah, it was 100,000 one day.
100,000?
Yeah.
And you've also done the smaller clubs as well?
I've done it, yeah. I toured with Elton, and to be quite honest, at the end, I had loved it, because we did a week at Madison Square Garden and they liked me. But there were other people who just hated me. See, this Mexican guy would come on. He was the announcer. And he'd go, hello, hello, hello! And all the frisbees would stop flying. And oh, a big expectant roar from like 30,000 people. Ladies and gentlemen, the roar's going, ah, Elton's friend. What? Boo! And then I throw things and I'm going, yeah, well, actually, I'm very funny if you'll just listen. Get off! Get off! Rock and roll! But so I got to enjoy the booing. It was strange. And I was standing going, thank you. Oh, yes! Thank you. And I was wearing my banjo. And I said, is it my banjo? Yeah! Boo! So I said, would you like to boo the back? And turn it around. Boo! So they started enjoying it too.
What other kind of places have you played in America?
I've started in pubs about 10 years ago in Massachusetts, playing to sort of geriatric Irish cowboys. And went on from there. People in Massachusetts think they're Irish. I can't understand that one. But I've done the whole thing from Carnegie Hall, Madison Square Garden. I toured with Manhattan Transfer, Dr. Hook. They were my favourites. The audience loved that. But there's other ones, you know, when I toured with Ian Hunter. The audience was mostly stoned Puerto Ricans. Not my favourite audience. Hey, wow, man. Holding hands, trying to get in touch with the living. Unbelievable. They were getting the point of my first story in the car on the way home. You know? Hey, wow, that guy's okay.
What about the joys of touring? I mean, do you actually enjoy being on the road?
Well, this time I got all healthy and I stopped drinking. I started meditation, became a vegetarian. I said, this tour I'm going to be healthy and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And it lasted till I got here. And then Barossa Valley. And now I'm on tour again. I wasn't really on tour till I got here. Yeah. Now I'm wrecked. And I'm on the road and I love it.
Is that the way you work?
And I'm an animal.
What about flying? Because you're not too keen on flying, are you? I mean, how do you cope with that?
I hate it. And I'm flying tomorrow. I hate it. We once flew from Adelaide to Whyalla, right? In a wee aeroplane, a wee 7-seater or 4-seater or something. Emu Airlines. Are you ready for that? And it's giving it a bit of that on the way up. And about 500 feet in the air, I said, hold the phone. Emus can't fly. Is that an Australian joke?
I just work on the general principle that we were never designed for flying in any case.
Absolutely. Yeah. John Lee Hooker said if God wanted us to fly, he'd buy the tickets. That's good. Right. I tell you, I was... Are you wanting to play?
No, go on.
I was flying back from New York once, and it was particularly bumpy, you know. And the little hostess upstairs in the jumbo, you know, in the first class. I always fly first class, I'm a showbiz personality.
Of course.
And she said, I've got something that'll settle your nerves. And it was a cube of sugar and Angostura bitters, and then brandy, and then champagne. She said, have a go at that, you'll feel great. But don't have any more than 3. And I said, oh, yeah? Smashing, very good, can I have another one? Yes. So I was going down for breakfast in the morning, holding on to the banister. And I said, how many did I have, by the way? And she said, 17. And that's how much I like flying. I loathe it. It's not fair.
Travel.
Be nice to me.
You're going to play something for us, aren't you, on this Appalachian mountain harp of yours?
I am indeed.
That's right, called the auto harp.
It's an auto harp,
That's
yeah.
right.
And it's a shame the auto is just for automatic. It should have a better name than that.
It's a song, isn't it, that you wrote yourself?
Aye, the old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. And it's good when I do it in concert because everybody's waiting for the funny line and it never comes. I do it to soothe the audience. It's sort of musical Valium, you know. And this is it. Can I do just one verse? Because my throat's real rough.
Sure.
Aye.
Sure.
I've got a voice like a goose farting in the fog. Oh, the moon's silver fingers slid over the mountain on a deep purple Arkansas night. The red wine was flowing, the red lights were glowing, the dancers waltzed into the night. Away in the forest, a bluebird was sleeping, where only the coyote calls. The dancers were swaying, the band started playing an old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. Just an old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. You've heard it before, you'll hear it again. Just an old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. Young ladies beware of mysterious young men. He stood in the shadows, the black-hatted stranger. He stayed well away from the bar. She could see his moustache and his blue-tinted glasses in the glow from his 5-cent cigar. She walked right up to him and said, "Hello, stranger," while the band played an old-fashioned tune. And they swung arm in arm to the edge of the dance floor, and a dark cloud slid over the moon. Just an old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. You heard it before, you'll hear it again. Just an old-fashioned Tennessee waltz. Young ladies beware of mysterious young men.
OK, thank you, Mr. Connolly. We're back after this break to meet Richard Walsh. See you in a moment. My next guest tonight, like my other guests, can hardly be accused of leading an ordinary, conventional existence. Before reaching the age of 30, he'd been a student of psychology, a political candidate, a lift driver, an advertising copywriter, a journalist and an editor. In the meantime, he qualified as a doctor. As an editor, he created Oz magazine, was labelled a terrible child of the 60s, and was sentenced to 6 months in prison in the famous Oz obscenity trial. On the principle that yesterday's rebel becomes today's pillar of the establishment, he is at present executive director of Angus and Robertson, Australia's oldest and largest publisher of books. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Walsh. What stood out there rather incongruously in that list of jobs you've done was, in fact, the lift attendant. But, I mean, that part played a rather important part in your life because you used to have editorial conferences in the lift, didn't you?
Yes, I had that job for 2 years, and it was in the evening, and I think it was one of the few lift drivers in Sydney that actually had a desk in his lift.
Yes.
And we basically booted the people out. The people actually had to use the building, mainly used the stairs, and I held my editorial conferences and got paid for 3 hours' work every night.
And that's where Oz was created, that's the editorial conferences for Oz?
Very much, yes. I used to, shut the doors and write bits of Oz.
This was, of course, when you were training to be a medical student, wasn't it?
It was my last 2 years of medicine,
That's
yes.
right. Did you have to take a test to be a lift driver?
Yes, in fact, ALA, the Authorised Lift Attendant Certificate, is one of my prouder achievements.
Really?
And, we sat for an exam. I believe some people failed the exam, but it must have been very difficult for them. I think they only asked you ever one question. I think it was pretty easy to get past the exam. You only had to know the answer to the question, which was, if the lift stuck between the floors, what did you do? And if you said that you stood on a stool and got out, you were fired and had to go back to start, because the actual answer was you had to sit there and ring the bell. Because it was fatal, of course, to get out onto the electric wires.
Well, we've in fact dug up a very old piece of film here, which shows you, in fact, in those days as a lift attendant. Just have a look here. We've got a clip coming up now.
Ground floor, please.
Yes. I love the lift work. I mean, obviously it's first and foremost a job, but it is very relaxing. It's virtually, like putting up the please don't disturb sign, to be able to say you've got to go off to work and know that no one's going to be able to contact you there or disturb you there. It's a way of catching up on a lot of your reading.
Terrible treat to put on somebody, isn't it? Take them back to their sort of pimply youth. It really is.
I wasn't pimply, but I was certainly youthful.
You were certainly youthful, that's for sure. But, I mean, in fact, it seemed an extraordinary thing to do. I mean, that you went through a 7-year course of medicine?
6.
6 years, never practiced it. Why was that?
I think I was so bad at the end that I don't think they would have let me loose on the community. I think I virtually did medicine by correspondence course. I didn't really attend very many lectures, to be truthful, and I think I'm one of the few people who have ever passed medicine without actually spending a night in casualty or having sighted blood, virtually. By the time I'd actually done an arts course before medicine, I wasn't very good at medicine, but I knew a lot about exam technique by the time I sat for medicine and passed it. And quite seriously, I did want to do it, but I got waylaid. I decided that I decided to leave medicine for 5 years, but the 5 years has gone on for a bit longer than that. I thought I was a restless youth that would be bad for the community. And so I left it and became an advertising copywriter and started a Pole magazine, a women's magazine. And, it grew from there, and unfortunately I think I've lost my way back.
When you started Oz, which you started in that lift and had your editorial conferences, what was the purpose of it? I mean, did you set out to shock and offend people, or what? No,
not purposely, nor did we attempt not to offend them either. But I and Richard Neville, the two of us started Oz, and we'd been student editors on different campuses and had enjoyed that experience and wanted to, in those days as student editor you only lasted 1 year, and we kind of wanted to do it for more than that, so we started Oz as a piece of fun, which is a kind of good way to start into anything. And the problem was that the kinds of things that amused people on campus and which was accepted, the kind of moral standards of the campus were a bit adrift from the rest of the community, so that when we were saying things to the rest of the community, which we took for granted in the university context, people were shocked and offended, and we didn't walk away from that, but the aim of the magazine was not to shock and offend.
Did you expect, in fact, to be charged with obscenity? I mean, when you started it, did you think this was a likely risk?
No, it came as quite an unpleasant surprise. But, and I mean, I remember, right up to the end of, we had a long trial and so on before magistrate, and I remember, on the day that we were sentenced, we thought we'd be fined some small amount and so on. We never realised the seriousness of it, but, we were in fact sentenced to 6 months hard labour, and we were not mentally prepared.
Well, nice middle-class boys being sent down the stairs from the dock, yes. 6 months. I mean, what did you feel like? Did you spend much time in prison?
Fortunately, we only spent a couple of hours, but it felt like a lifetime because, as I say, we were so mentally unprepared that we went down there and we had no idea about things like appeal and getting out and so on. And myself and Martin Sharp, because Richard Neville was overseas, were thrown into a cell with a whole lot of vagrants. And it was kind of lunchtime in the cell, as a matter of fact. And the first horrific thing, because we were very bourgeois young men, and we arrived there and they shoved a tureen of soup under the door, under the grill, and a whole lot of pannikins. And the lags kind of went and, with their dirty mitts and shoved the old pannikins into the thing and had their soup, slurp, slurp. And we were not feeling very hungry at the prospect of shoving our hands in and getting some soup out of this rather sordid can. But fortunately, we were reprieved shortly thereafter, after having been fingerprinted and numbered and so on. We're still in the system somewhere.
Yes. Have you ever been in prison, Billy?
I spent one night in a police cell. It was really weird because it was serious assault was a charge, and I had been fighting with this guy, but he attacked me. I was in jail for winning, right? He jumped on me and I beat him. Jail. But I was at home after the event, the fight. I went away home, and he obviously went to the police. But I was in bed when the police arrived outside the door, and I was in my pyjamas, and I knew what was going to happen, so I just pulled my jeans on over my pyjamas, my shirt, away to jail, which is a police office, not a prison. And they sent me into my cell to bed. So I took my pyjamas off. And I remember the cop looking through the little hole. He went, "Good God." He said, "I've seen them come and I've seen them go, but never in pyjamas."
What about you? You've been in a lot of trouble, haven't you, one way or another, with your editorial enterprises? Because when you started Nation Review, again, you got a charge of obscenity against you, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We did a notorious cartoon. A guy called Lunig did a cartoon. It was a rather hilarious cartoon of a lady at a identification parade of flashers. I'm guessing that Scottish people know what a flasher is.
Oh, yeah.
And they flash in Scotland, do they?
Oh, yeah.
What they call fastest flashes in the British Empire. But in Australia, you have to actually do your flight. But anyhow, it was a flasher identification, and all these men were flashing. And the lady says, "That's him, that's the flasher," obviously recognising something or other. And anyhow, we were up in court, and in fact, we were sentenced. But I decided I wasn't going to waste, I'd wasted a lot of my time and money on counsel, trying to defend myself from obscenity in the past very unsuccessfully. So on this occasion, I regard myself as Australia's leading legal expert on obscenity, and took the matter to the Court of Appeal in Victoria and won. And I've hung up my gown ever since. I regard myself as the only person with a 100% success rate in the Victorian.
But you've also been called before the bar of the Senate too, haven't you?
Yes, that's true. We were called...
He's got a fine record, this
Yes,
chap,
yes.
it really has.
Yes, that was a breach of privilege of Parliament. And actually, the only previous people in that situation had actually been jailed. The whole thing kind of came out of the blue. As a matter of fact, I was down in Melbourne and was called before the bar of the Senate, which really is quite a serious business. And I should say that I very rarely, you're seeing my suit on second outing this year, I don't very often wear a suit, and I certainly didn't have a suit in Melbourne at the time. And I had to borrow. And I was, as perhaps in that picture, a rather thin young man. And I put this suit on very late to catch the plane to go to Canberra and stand in front of the Senate and be whipped. And only on the plane did I really realise that when I stood up, the trousers fell down. So I went into the Senate chamber, and I had no idea what they were going to put us through, actually. The late Mr. Scare called us whip by a feather, which really what it was just a reprimand. But I was standing there with my hands beside me. I thought, you know, my God, they might ask me to put my hands up or something. And there I'd be in the Senate exposing myself, flashing.
When you're on Nation Review, I mean, Nation Review was investigative, it was books and all kind of journalism, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I suppose that it would arouse the anger of people in high places and that sort of thing. Were you ever raided by the authorities?
We thought we were. I mean, we were quite serious. I think we were. Some people came in and they pretended to be, purported to be PMG technicians looking at all our phones, but seemed to be looking into our desks more than our phones. It was a pretty good excuse for having a look around the place. And in fact, we had, in fact, some material on the premises at the time that we certainly would have caused us great concern, and it was Xerox material. Myself and the then assistant editor rushed down the back lavatory and decided we're going to shove this stuff down the loo. The only problem was we sort of started ripping. It was the days before the auto shredder. So you're actually with your hands ripping this thing and pushing it, and the bloody, we actually started to sort of push it into the loo and pull the chain and got pretty frantic about all this. And of course the cistern blocked. And so we're sort of there with the old sleeves rolled up, looking pretty compromising, shoving the old Xerox through the system. But fortunately, we weren't nabbed.
But could it be, Richard, as I suggested in the introduction, perhaps, that that the sort of rebel of the 60s becomes a middle-aged, comfortable businessman of the 80s? I mean, you are now...
Is that the description of me?
Yes, that's you. I mean...
I heard of Mr. Ida as a pillar of the establishment. I must say, I'm a pillar of the establishment. It's going to fall down any minute. But, no, I mean, I'm not... me, myself, obviously... I think comedy is something you have to keep at, and I haven't written comedy for some years, and I think I would. You know, I think if my life depended on it, I probably could do it again, but it's not something that would come as easily as it did at that time. But I don't think the whole world of Australian comedy relies on my talents. There should be new people coming along and being able to write that stuff. Yeah, I think it's easy to become... My life has taken a different turn. I don't, as I say, don't feel too... pillarish, but I certainly, I think as you get older, you certainly, your preoccupations become perhaps a little more serious, yes.
Do you get more, what's the word, amiable, mellow as you get older?
Oh, yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Mellow and interesting?
Oh, mellow and interesting. I don't do the things I used to do, but I think about them more.
Remember them.
Would that be a fair summation of how you stand at present, then, Richard, as well?
Well, yes, I don't feel too mellow, but yes, I mean, you change. I think that's a good thing.
All right, fine. But for the moment, Richard Walsh, thank you very much indeed. Richard Walsh. We're back after the break with a spectacular dance number in honour of my final guest tonight, Kenny Everett. See you soon. One of the most inventive television shows to come out of Britain in many a long year is the Kenny Everett video show. The proprietor we shall meet in a moment, but first a dance number in honour of his Australian debut. As devotees of his show know, and non-devotees are about to find out, a regular feature is a steamy dance number done by a group called Hot Gossip. We thought that we'd start our spot with Kenny with a salute to Hot Gossip, choreographed by Lee Chambers and featuring Delilah. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by for what Mr. Everett would describe as the rude bit.
You think you're the same 'cause you got the same name, but the widow has a mobile home. just like Queen Bee, baby. Pray that she may be left on you. Oh, nothing she'll give you is gonna leave you. 'Cause the Queen Bee is never gonna be alone.
We'll be back in a moment to meet Kenny Everett. See you in a moment. Now, my final guest describes himself as a frantic, leap-about creature. He is, in fact, an extraordinary performer, a comedian, writer and actor, a man whose inventive mind is not only faster than most people's, but is also marvellously out of sync. Someone once said, and I quote, "He's a man invaded by a horde of eccentric figures who fight it out in his head for the loan of his tongue." In England, he's known as the Wildman of the Wireless, Britain's zaniest and most creative disc jockey. His sense of humour has had him sacked from 3 radio stations, including the BBC, and that led him to make a TV series which has created him a cult following in Britain and Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenny Everett. Hello, Kenny.
I'm ready for a quick getaway.
The contents of the bag will be revealed in due course.
I'm awful nervous.
Are you?
Ooh, back there.
Oh, I'm cool. I've been doing this for ages.
That's right, yes.
Somebody at the BBC told me about a fab new drug called oxyprenolol for nerves. It quells your nerves, but it leaves your mind sharp. I thought, I'll try this. I was in New Zealand recently doing a funny little interview, and I took one of these pills about an hour beforehand, and it was great. I was totally nerve-free, but it sucks all the moisture out your head. It does, and your lips go all dry and the roof of your mouth, it's like a peanut butter factory in there. And this guy said, "Well, what's it like to be in New Zealand?" So they went down the loo.
What do you like? I mean, what's the difference now in the kind of fame you've got? Very different fame now with the television show than you had with the radio, because now you're recognised. And I know for a fact that you're a shy person normally, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You are. How do you cope with
The
that?
big difference is when you go into supermarkets and you know, you've got your little trolley, and you don't like people to think that because you're a fab personality, you buy peas and wet ones, and you're there scooping all the stuff into the trolley, and suddenly you hear all this giggling from behind the snack pots. And they know you've arrived, and so you just go... You speed out like hell out into the street, and you get home and you find you've got all sorts of things you don't want. Tampax. I've got a fridge full of Tampax.
Have you always been shy?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Since school. Since I realised that I'm a... Look at this, look at that. Have you got one of those? You want this one? It's no use to me. I won one fight once by accident. I swung out in a sort of panic, caught this guy in the teeth, and he went away yelping. That was my biggest triumph. But at school, they used to pick on me because I'm a weed. And they used to say, "Oh, there's nothing doing today. What should we do? Oh, let's beat up Everett." I used to offer no resistance, so I said, "OK, fine." Just all pile on top of me.
But I mean, what did that? I mean, after school, what kind of kid did that make you? I mean, did you mix with the lads after school?
Neurotic schizophrenic, I think. Had great plans to be a mass murderer when I grew up. What?
But what is it that allows you in your nature to go on television and be incredibly extrovert the way that you are?
Because the nearest person is 20 foot away, you see, and if one of them comes towards you, you've got a good head start.
Well, let's have a look then at that television star, because we've got a clip here by courtesy of our old friends at the ABC, which is, in fact, one of the funniest things that you've done on the show, in my view. It's your takeoff.
That was a very easy sketch to do, because after the third nose, I didn't have to mime even. It covered the face.
That lovely song will never sound the same again, will it? Never the same feeling at all. Did she object to that at all, Miss Streisand?
Well, the show goes out in the States, but we showed it to her beforehand just in case, because they sue at the drop of an olive over there. And she looked at it and she said, I think it's very funny, but if you show it on American television, I'll sue your ass. Yeah, because they love an excuse to sue.
Yeah. And how many countries is your show sold in now?
It's about lots.
It's lots of it.
Yeah.
And what do you have to edit bits out, censor bits?
Only in Australia. Only that hot gossip bit.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought Australia, you know, it would be great if... What? Somebody speak! I thought they'd be all liberal here and, you know, we'd have to put in things like bum jokes and stuff. But they cut out hot gossip. But they put it back now. So that's all right.
Good.
Why are you looking so mystified?
I'm not looking mystified
You've
at all.
got all your bit written down.
I just wondered why you got up and sort of wandered around there, did a walkabout.
I heard somebody talking.
Would you like to talk to someone in the audience, perhaps?
Hello, audience. They're marvellous. Where'd you get them? Harrods.
Let's go back to the childhood bit, because at one point, in fact, you had an ambition to be a Catholic priest, did you not?
Well, my mother
daft,
was... See, there is somebody out there. My mother was a big into the old-fashioned, heavy, my son must be something terrific routine. So it was either be a Catholic priest or a disc jockey. Either will do, you know? But in school, it was hell, as I told you. It was always being thumped and not understanding the lessons and hiding in corners. And it was that, or go away to Disraeli's old country house in Yorkshire and become an African missionary. And this friend of mine went there and came back to see me, and he said, "Oh, it's great, you catch moles all day when you're not praying and stuff. You catch moles, you shin up trees, it's fresh air and wonderful." So I went for the fresh air and the moles. The masses and the getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do confession, that came as a sort of a sideline.
But what went wrong? I mean, what decided you against it?
I confessed all my sins. And, of course, the guys who you confess to own the place. So if you say, I do awful things in the dormitory at night, Your Honour, they know about it and they go, "Oh, I think we better get rid of this guy."
And when did your interest in radio start?
I think the first time I heard it, we were the only kids in our street to have an FM wireless. And it was like having celebrities in the room. Every other house in the street just had people. But we had radio celebrities in ours. I remember being ill once and listening to all day, even Oranges and Lemons, 6 o'clock in the morning, which starts the BBC. And I thought, wow, an orchestra in my bedroom. And I mean, that doesn't sound great now because you have colour TV and video cassettes. But in those days, having an orchestra in 14 Hereford Road, Liverpool, was a mammoth event.
Yes. And where did the humour develop? From the comedians that you heard at that time on the radio, or what?
No, I think it was the horrors of life, really. Because comedians in those days were very sort of staid, weren't they? They sort of told, what do you call those people? Your wife's mother-in-law. They told mother-in-law jokes and that was it. There wasn't much scope.
Yeah. How did you get the job at the BBC then?
I sent a tape in. I had a paper round, 3 times a day, delivering papers on a bike. And I saved up my 12 and 6pence a week and bought 2 tape machines. And I used to send tapes to people. And one of the people said, "Why don't you, instead of sending tapes to people, why don't you send one to the BBC and get a job?" And I'd never thought of it before. So I went to the BBC in London, and they had carpets, and people didn't hit me. And I thought, hey, this is the way to live. So I tried for a job there, but they said, "No, we've got Pete Murray and David Jacobs. I don't think we need any more. And they're going to last 1,000,000 years, and they have." So they said, "Why don't you try one of these pirate Johnnies just come in up the river? Give them a whirl." So I was on the next day, throwing up.
on the pirate ships?
Yeah.
These are the things, if our Australian audience don't know, that anchored, 3 miles out or outside the limits, did they not? And beamed in radio shows into the mainland.
That's right. Well, we only had the BBC in those days, and it was so stiff, you know.
Oh, right.
It was sort of, they used to spend half an hour doing a time check. By the time they delivered the time, it was half an hour on.
And now it's 6 minutes past 8. That's 8:06.
And then there's something dreadful, like the BBC Light Orchestra would come on and play Strawberry Fields Forever at 2 miles an hour.
You got the SACO course on the BBC, didn't you, when you went back to them from the pirate stations?
Yes, for making well, it wasn't actually for making the remark about the Transport Minister's wife. It was because people in the press... No, it's true, when I came from the Pirates to the... Have I jumped a bit?
No.
Oh, when I came from the Pirates to the BBC, what was the next line? Cut! Oh, we're live! Oh, hell! Yes, they were very stiff. They used to say, they used to have a producer in with you, standing over you while you were on the air, trying to be jolly. And when you turn the microphone off after delivering a bit of blurb, they'd turn to you and say, "Do you think that was wise?" And I'd only said, "Hi," or something. "Do you think that's wise?" And the press used to come up to me and say, "What do you think of the BBC?" I used to say, "Bloody awful. It's terrible. After the Pirates, it's so stiff. It's like being in the headmaster's study." So the press used to print this in the BBC. "I can't have this." And I used to say it because they kept asking and asking. And so the BBC said, "Come into my office. So we would sign this, will you? It says that you will never talk to the press ever again without our permission." So it was either that or go home and forget the whole thing, so I signed it. And of course, the next pressman that came up, I said, "I can't say anything because I've signed a document saying that I'll never talk to the press." And they didn't like that either. So the next slightly naughty thing I did on the air, they came down like a ton of rocks.
What was the slightly naughty thing you did?
Oh, yes, it was the Minister of Transport's wife, not content with being a normal average driver like the rest of us thought it would be a terrific boost to her hubby if she passed the advanced driving test. And of course she did on the first go. Who in the testing panel is going to dump the transport minister's wife? So of course she got it, and I said, oh, she probably crammed a fiver in his hand. What? Pavement! What? Closed doors, mortgage suddenly gone, hassles from the police.
And front page news too, wasn't it? It was absolutely remarkable, extraordinary. All right, go and be back in a moment when you're going to open the contents of that case and reveal to all of us what
Yes,
happened.
stay with us. There's nothing going on any other channel.
That's right. Now,
See you later.
Back in a moment, talk some more to Kenny Everett, Billy Connolly. Welcome back, my guests, Billy Connolly, Richard Walsh and Kenny Everett. Kenny, on the video show, you created a whole new range of characters. Where do you get the ideas from?
It's all the people I've always wanted to be, but weren't.
Like who?
Like Sid Snot is a sort of hairy, huge, leather-clad rocker who goes around hitting people. And I've always wanted to be him. Actually, I've always wanted to be invisible, but there's no sketch material in that. Because what would be the first thing you would do if you had the power to be invisible in London? I thought about this. I think if I could go boom and become invisible, I'd walk to Buckingham Palace, right? When the gates are open, swan in, follow her around until she needed a poo. Can you imagine at parties saying, I've seen Queen Elizabeth poo? You'd be a wow. You'd be a wow. Anyway.
Well, what about the other characters? I mean, the Angry of Mayfair and things like that.
Well, the best, my favourite one is the French guy, because they have this fantastic French accent. But I don't look like a Frenchman. Don't know what I look like tonight. Too much raving, isn't it? Australia
Absolutely.
brings out the raver in you. But this is a chin we found in a cupboard at Thames Television. And I put it down, and I suddenly... suddenly... Hello, darlings. But we did a sketch once. A close-up on mask. Close-up on mask. God, they're quick here. We did it. No, stay there, close up. We did a sketch once. It was the easiest sketch I've ever done. Give me the wall. Ella, have you seen Kenny Everett around here anywhere? I'm sure he's somewhere around here.
Do you invent any new characters? You do Prince Charles, don't you?
Oh, yes, we found a huge pair of rubber ears. And we thought, what are we going to do with this? And then we thought, Prince Charles. Actually, there's a new T-shirt out in England. Because you know how well the wedding went? Well, they've brought out a T-shirt for... It's called Next Morning, July the 30th. And it shows them in bed. Can you see that? Oh, smoke coming out their ears. And up here, he's got all the girls before he got to her. Jane, Sabrina, Astrid, Davina, right down to the 3 degrees. Wonderful.
Do you have any characters, Billy, you invent?
No, my characters don't really do anything. Hello. That's Bill. Hello. He's a nice wee guy. Yeah. He doesn't do, he just pops in. And Foo, who doesn't know anything, he sits on walls a lot, Foo.
These are childhood things, are they?
Aye.
Yeah.
And there's the guy who can't think, you know.
What's in this box of tricks?
I've got a great invention here from the joke shop. It's for if the audience goes to sleep on you, which happens frequently, you just go...
Oh, that's it.
See? They're all awake now. It says here, it's violent explosives from Taiwan. And it says, a novel trick item. Throw it, step on it, do not eat.
You love collecting this paraphernalia, don't you?
Oh,
what you got
yeah, I love trick shops, because in Britain now, everything's so depressing because there's no money anymore because we have to buy petrol with it. So... it's twice as expensive as here. Have you got your own?
What?
Here, petrol.
Own petrol?
Yeah, do you dig it out?
Yes,
yeah,
we've got some here, haven't they?
We've got some in the North Sea, but Like, it's about £2.50 a gallon now, but it costs £3 to get it out. Something wrong somewhere.
That's right.
How about this? The world's first reusable flower. She loves me. She loves me not. She loves me. And if it comes out as she loves me not, you stick them back on and try again. This is cute. I mean, people are, so depressing. People are spending all their money, instead of on food and things, they're spending it on silly, daft parties. It's like before the war in America, dancing on tops of cars and things. This is a pod of peas. This is cute. What every house needs. Get the bugger open. Here we are. An egg. Oh, this is good online. Oh, back away. Back. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a walking tennis ball.
He's my favourite. I love him. He's great.
Wake up! A singing potato. This is good. This is good here. This, you'll like this. Right. It's instant sick. It's very reusable. It's plastic, and you just, you know, during a party, you go, excuse me. Oh, you got a spoon. But it's made in foreign parts, and it's got all the different languages. Spew, and if you're French, va missionnaire. And it says at the back, it must have been made in Germany. It says, everybody takes the joke.
I love this excellent imitation of stomach contents.
I say, Australia, have you got round to this little swine thing yet?
Oh, I've got those. Can you do it?
The depressing thing. Tell them what the depressing thing is.
I don't know.
Oh,
yeah, your kids can do it, yeah.
There's some kid in England that can do it in 20 seconds, but it's all right, they've killed him. But now, God bless America. I went to Los Angeles before I went to New Zealand. What a shock. They've written a book on how to do it. So you're safe, folks. Here's something good. Thank you.
And what about the other thing you collect, too? You collect the golden molders, don't you, which are the world's worst songs.
I played Tell Laura I Love Her once on the radio. And I said, oh, isn't that awful? But it's great. It's so awful, it's great.
Yes.
So people sent sackloads of crap in, and we weeded through it and got some wonderful records and made an album, The World's Worst Record Show. And there were some that we'd only had the titles to because they didn't have the records. It was a country and western record called Flushed from the Bathroom of Your Heart. And there was the best one in the titles department. It was a real record. It was called I'd Rather Have a Bottle in Front of Me Than a Frontal Lobotomy.
Right, well, in a moment, I ask you to believe that Mr. Connolly will add to Mr. Everett's list of golden molders with a song which can lay claim to being the worst ever written. He should know because he did it. Right, back in a moment to hear Billy Connolly. See you after that. Welcome back. To finish with something you definitely cannot follow, Mr. Billy Connolly's contribution to Kenny Everett's list of golden mouldies. Here's Mr. Connolly going for the big one.
Hey, y'all. You see, I used to love country and western. I still do love country and western music, some of it. But there's a guy called Red Sylvain who writes these sick, half-talking ones, you know, about drunk drivers running over their own children and stuff like that. And I love them, right? I've got a huge collection. That's great. So this is my contribution. You see, I played all this stuff, and I could see the ingredients. he was using. And first of all, you need, in your lyrics, you need relatives. The closer the better. You need somebody with something terrible wrong with them, preferably incurable. And a few disasters, as many disasters and tragedies as you like. And God, he should put in an appearance, keep the party clean, you see. And so I wrote one with all of the ingredients, and it's called My Mother Drowned in the Grotto at Lourdes. Because a hunchback pushed her in. And this is, right, now you must do the chorus. This is a chorus. You must help me, you see. Oh, dee lady, lady, lady. Right, do it. That was it. Oh, dee lady, lady, lady. Right, here we go. Oh, my granny is a cripple in Nashville. This story I tell you is true. One day she was out on her wheelchair, never knowing it had a loose screw. Well, a wheel came off of that wheelchair, friends, and on 3 wheels it trundled away. And it trundled right over the edge of a cliff on an old seaside town far away. Sing, oh, dee lady, lady, louder! Now the boy who was pushing the wheelchair was a little blind orphan called Joe. And he said, oh, where is my granny? And where did that damn wheelchair go? Well, he ran off to search for that wheelchair, friends, but his sightless eyes led him astray. And he ran right over the edge of the cliff in that old seaside town far away. Sing, a dee lady, lady. Well, somebody sent for a doctor, and an ambulance too it was called, and the people who lived in the neighborhood stood around and they cried how they bawled. Well, the doctor and the ambulance came rushing, friends. They were rushing from 2 different ways, and they crashed with a biff and shot over the cliff in that old seaside town far away. Sing, oh, dee lady, lady. Well, they sent for brave Father Maloney to pray for the poor soul's repose. And he said, well, now that we're gathered here, good people, we might as well pray, I suppose. But too many people had gathered, and the edge of the cliff gave way, and they dropped with a yell. They all shot straight to hell in that old seaside town far away. Last chance. Oh, dee lady, lady, lady. Thank you.
Well, that's a definite contender, isn't it?
Oh,
Golden
absolutely.
Bowling.
The one that won in our contest, because we threw it open to London to vote on these records, the one that won was about this guy who had a motorcycle accident on his way to a Beatle concert. And he had his girlfriend on the back. And he said, blam, crash, etc. And he said, when I woke up, folks, when I came to, I was all bleeding and tattered. But over there was my baby. And over there was my baby. And way over there.
And that was real, was it?
The climax of the whole thing was he couldn't get over it, the fact that she died. So, and all the way through he's going, I want my baby back. I want my baby back. And he's digging her up, right? And at the end he goes, pay dirt! And he climbs in with her, right, months later. I got my baby.
Right, anything else in there that we should know about before we close the show?
Yes, folks.
What?
If your party's dying and
Yes.
everything's going astray,
Yes.
try the new
What are these?
Wonder Whoopee String.
You joined together, you knitted. my thanks to Billy Connolly, Richard Walsh, Kenny Everett, to the ABC for the use of their clips, and of course Delilah and the dancers. See you same time next week. We'll get this stuff off. Good night. Good night.